And given what's going on in Canada, I'm conscious about making sure that their lives, their stories, their voices, therefore their whakapapa isn't lost. And I think we have a responsibility to connect those whānau who are lying there, so they're not feeling alone, that they've been isolated and forgotten about, and reconnect them with their whānau wherever they might be.
Yeah. What's your particular interest in this, Matthew?
Oh, look, Tukanui Hospital, I started having a look at it because of my interest in mental health and suicide prevention. For a very long time, I was chair of Suicide Prevention Australia and chaired the Federal Coronial Commission over there. And when I started my journey back home, about 5 or so years ago, I did so working with Mike King. And when I saw what was going on in mental health and suicide prevention here, it was just grating and terrible. But the more I went into it, the more I had a look at the history of it. At Carrington, for example, at Kingseat, at Porirua, at Lake Alice. And then also more recently, I was a member of the taumata of the Royal Commission into abuse and care and faith-based organisations, and of course now I'm the chair of Order and Family. And so for me, it's about, I get to see firsthand what those stories are. In terms of my current inquiry into Order and Tamariki, I've gone right back to 1893 to better understand how the care and protection system grew up in this country. And at every stage, Jesse, what I see are stories of people who are no longer with us. But if we don't tell those stories, then we'll never understand the true nature of our history when it comes to these sorts of systems.
Why were they buried in unmarked graves?
Well, I think back then there was really no, as Lake Alice is borne out in the Royal Commission, things were done that were quite frankly just terrible. I mean, if somebody died, it seems to me, if it was an afterthought, we've got to put the body somewhere. And also it's tying out the fact that the record keeping has been absolutely shockingly terrible. There are just records that cannot be found that no longer exist because of whatever might have happened to them. So I think that's the way things were apparently done back then. The last burial, I believe, in 1968, for example. Today, as a country, I think we are much more advanced in the way that we understand the need to look after not only those who are living, but those who have passed away. I mean, right across the country, there are some amazing projects going on in Uruparan cemeteries. Say, for example, over in West Auckland, we've got crews of people who are doing clean-up brigades for graves of World War II soldiers and veterans who have passed away. And so you've got all of this sort of, we need to recognise our grief, our mamai, but also try and do something to bring those other stories back to life. So I think it's always it's kind of like what was always done. And quite frankly, in today's day and age, it's terrible to think that's how we treated people.
How and where would you even start trying to identify these people?
Well, there's already a project that's been underway with Tukanui, so a huge amount of work has already been done, but there's more to be done. So the first thing is to identify who is lying where and in what graves. So there are some archives, including an Urupa map that shows different burial sites and plots. But actually what we need to do is go further. We need to verify for ourselves whether or not we're also dealing with potential plots in places like Carrington, like Kingseat, like Porirua, and like Lake Alice as well. And there were Urupa in some of those facilities or connected to those facilities. So the first thing is to find out as much as possible, what's in the archive, what's in the, who might be identified as being some of these plots. And that's why I want to see the government fund a whakapapa project. A whakapapa project that begins that process right across the country, and let's deal with our mamai and grief, but also give a story to who is buried where, and if possible, let's reconnect them back to their whānau. I dare say we've got whānau living today that don't even know that, say, Uncle Jim or Cousin Bob or Cousin Lucy is lying somewhere in one of these unmarked plots.
What do you mean by a whakapapa project, by the way?
So for me, a whakapapa project is about understanding first of all, who is buried there? Are they connected to a whānau? If they're not connected to a whānau, how can we go about reconnecting them, about building their whakapapa for them? And that's what it means to me. We've got people that are lying in these places that are forgotten. How can we reconnect them to their family tree?
Where to from here then? Who are you hoping for a response from?
Well, I'm going to go meet with politicians early next week here in Wellington. God forbid I come back to Wellington. But politicians in Wellington, I'm also hoping to have a conversation with Mick Saitari, who's the Minister for Veterans. I'm going to bring this up also at the Royal Commission and certainly in the work that I'm doing in the Care and Protection System with Ranga Tambiki. I'll be having a conversation with Sumita Gardner early next week as well. So my role here is to try and advocate for this sort of initiative and project to get up and running, and I'm hoping that many other New Zealanders will see the benefits of this and come on board as well. We're going to put up some information at MāoriEverywhere.com early next week, so people can start accessing where some of these sites might be. And also, just because I'm not busy enough, I'm going to try and have a conversation with Ancestry.com, who are one of the largest conduits of records now here in New Zealand and around the world.
Tēnei te mihi kia koe ho, kia paiti haere. Thanks very much for being on the show today, and good idea.
Thank you, and thank you, Jesse. Thank you very much for having me on.
Matthew Tukati is chair of National Māori Authority, calling for a project to identify those buried in unmarked graves at Tupanui Cemetery in the Waikato. Let's go to Kiwisdr Hamilton, where a project to clean up the streets is making good progress. 1.2 tonnes of rubbish was collected at the most recent clean-up over the weekend. With me now is Anna Petchel from Keep Hamilton Beautiful. Hi, Anna.
Hey, Jesse. Nice to hear you.
How long has Keep Hamilton Beautiful been an organisation? When did you get together and start this?
Probably about 8 weeks ago. And Keep New Zealand Beautiful was running and functioning, but I had been doing so many cleanups by myself prior to that, and got back to Hamilton and realised that there wasn't really anything accessible here in the Waikato to be able to do. And so I kind of thought, well, I might as well make something that everyone can be part of and, have a contribution and part to play.
And I presume it's a voluntary group with people contributing their own time to pick up rubbish.
It is. Which actually sounds not the most exciting thing in the world, but it's amazing how many people wanted to help and want to get on board and involved and just haven't had a platform to do that before. So it's actually been like the first cleanup we ran had 38 people, and this one that we just ran over the weekend had 40 people. So, there's quite a lot of people wanting to be part of it.
Were you surprised at how many people came to help?
To be honest, I'm not sure, because I had been running cleanups around the world anyway, and had been part of a lot of different ones that, had been running and already established. So I knew that there was already a bit of a want to help out there. But, it's been awesome to see how many people in Hamilton wanted to get on board.
Can you tell me a bit about your own story, Anna?
Yeah, sure. So I spent the last 8 years or 7.5 years working at sea. And while I was in that last couple of years, I started seeing quite a big problem around the world in the oceans and with the pollution out there. And so I started organising cleanups when we were at different marinas around the world, and also was trying to reduce the amount of waste that we had on board when I was running the deck department. And whilst trying to reduce that, also kind of going, well, this is actually a bigger problem than me reducing a little bit of the waste. And so when I got back to New Zealand, I thought, well, the place and a chance to actually start something. Love creating communities and making things accessible. So, that's kind of how that came to happen.
Yeah, and how do the cleanups work?
So at the moment, what we do is I have organised and partnered up with a group called Purposeful Skips, which are a for-purpose eco-environmental skips company, and also have teamed up with another group, Sunny Nelson Ice Cream, who come along and help. They give a little contribution out to everyone as delicious ice cream at the end. And then I teamed up with Hamilton City Council to actually dispose of the waste. So So people find out about the program or find out about the cleanup and then turn up. And I've also had really good support from a couple of different companies who have donated rubbish pickers and bags and all that sort of stuff. So we all meet somewhere and clean up that area for 90 minutes. Then people get an ice cream and some fruit at the end. And yeah, that's kind of what happens.
How much rubbish is out there, and where did you find 1.2 tonnes of the stuff in just 90 minutes of collecting?
Oh, I know. I actually was driving to this location in the west of Hamilton and Norton the other day, and I thought there's not actually that much rubbish there. And then after 90 minutes, realised actually we've got tons more. But in parks and around streets and under bushes and behind things, we ran another cleanup a month or so ago, and that was in Donny Park in Chartwell, and we got 1.25 tonnes, and that was the very first one that we ran. And that was, it was a shock. I actually was genuinely quite surprised when he said the amount, because I thought, 1.25 tonne is a lot of waste.
Yeah.
So, quite shocking amount that's actually out on the streets just around in any area of town.
Why are you doing it? What do you get out of it?
After working at sea for such a long time and doing a job that ultimately was taking, it wasn't doing anything good for society, I had quite a desire to give back and to do something good for the planet and also to be able to bring people together. And this is kind of the perfect way to do that. I think contribution, when people contribute, that provides a lot of